Here, take half. I mean it. I'm not as hungry as I look. The man on the park bench looked up slowly. He was unshaven, wearing a coat that had weathered too many seasons, and he had been sitting very still at the edge of Callaway Park with his hands in his lap and his eyes somewhere in the middle distance. The particular stillness of someone who has learned not to expect anything from the day. Wren Callaway was 25 years old, and she said it the way she said most things, directly, without ceremony, already tearing the sandwich in half before he had a chance to decline. It was a good sandwich. Rosemary turkey on sourdough, made that morning by her mother, wrapped in wax paper the way her mother always wrapped things, with the edges folded twice. It was the only food Wren had with her. She had a long afternoon of freelance illustration work ahead, and no lunch plans beyond this. She held out the half without looking away, which was the thing that made it feel like respect rather than charity. He took it. His hands were steady. "Thank you," he said. His voice was low and careful, and did not sound like a man who had been on a park bench long. "It's rosemary turkey," she said, sitting down on the far end of the bench with her own half. "My mom puts too much mustard, but I've stopped telling her because it makes her feel useful." He looked at the sandwich, then at her. Something moved across his face, not quite a smile, but the beginning of one. "How long have you been not telling her?" 4 years, she said. "Since I moved back in. She went through something hard and cooking helped her. So now we have too much mustard on everything and I consider it a fair trade." They ate in the unhurried quiet of people who have accidentally stumbled into a conversation that fits. He learned her name and that she was a freelance medical illustrator who worked from her parents' house and took the long way through Callaway Park every afternoon because the light through the elm trees at 3 o'clock was the specific quality of light that made her feel like the day still had good things in it. She learned his name, Corbin, and that he liked the park for the quiet and that he hadn't been sleeping well, and that he had once, a long time ago, cared very much about something and wasn't sure he remembered how to care about things with that same completeness anymore. She didn't ask why he was on the bench. She didn't ask about his code or his circumstances, or whether he needed anything beyond half a sandwich. She simply talked to him like a person, which was, she had learned from her mother, the most important thing you could do for someone who had stopped being seen as one. They sat for 30 minutes. Then she gathered her bag and her half-eaten wax paper and said she had to get back to a deadline, and he thanked her again and she said it was just a sandwich. And he said that wasn't what he was thanking her for. She walked home through the elms and didn't think much more about it.
His full name was Corbin Ashford. He was 33 years old, and the coat, the bench, the unshaven face, all of it was deliberate. He did this 4 times a year, chose a neighborhood, dressed simply, left his phone and his car and his name behind for an afternoon, and walked through the city like a person with nothing. His late father had started the practice and passed it to him along with the company, Ashford Development Group, which had built or renovated 11 of the towers visible from Callaway Park on a clear day. His father had believed, and Corbin had come to believe, that you could not make decisions about a city's people from inside a boardroom. You had to sit on their benches, eat their lunches, watch their light through their elm trees. He had been doing it for 5 years. No one had ever given him half their sandwich before. He thought about Wren Callaway for the rest of the week, not in a calculated way, in the way you think about something that surprised you honestly, the directness of her, the way she torn the sandwich before he could say no, understanding that the offer would be harder to accept than the food itself. The detail about the mustard and her mother, which had told him more about her character in 2 sentences than most people revealed in an hour. He made no immediate move. He was not a man who acted from sentiment, but he was a man who paid attention, and what he'd seen in 30 minutes on a bench had stayed in his mind with the specific durability of things that are true. 3 weeks later, through his foundation's arts and community program, Ashford Development issued a new grant for independent illustrators working in medical and scientific fields, a field chronically underfunded in arts grant cycles. The grant covered a full year of operating support, equipment, software, professional development. Applications opened on a Tuesday. Wren's mother saw it shared in an illustration forum and sent it to her with a message that said simply, "This looks like you." Rin applied on a Thursday. She received it 6 weeks later and stood in her parents' kitchen reading the letter with the same focused stillness she brought to her best work, her mother watching from the doorway with both hands pressed together. She didn't connect it. She had no reason to. She found out on a morning in March when the Ashford Foundation held a small reception for its grant recipients at a gallery on Mercer Street. She walked in, and across the room a man in a clean jacket looked up from a conversation and went still. She recognized him before she recognized why. Then it assembled: the bench, the coat, the careful voice, the line that wasn't about the sandwich. She walked over slowly. "Calloway Park," she said. "Calloway Park," he confirmed. A pause. The coat was deliberate. "It was," he said. He didn't apologize for it or over-explain it. He told her simply what his father had taught him, that a city's decisions should be made by people who have sat in the city, that the coat was how he remembered. She looked at him for a long moment. "And the grant?" "The grant was real," he said. "Your work qualified entirely on its own terms. I didn't know you had applied until the committee sent me the recipient's list." A pause. "I was glad when I saw your name." "Why?" she asked. He considered this honestly. "Because someone who gives away half their only sandwich in the afternoon and talks about mustard and her mother and the light through elm trees, that's someone who sees the world carefully. That's someone who should be supported in the work they're doing." Ren looked at the room around her, the other recipients, the foundation staff, the quiet evidence of someone using resources to make things better for people they'd never have to meet. Then she looked back at him.
"I told you it was just a sandwich," she said. "It was the most generous thing anyone did for me that year," he said quietly, "and I own half the Skyline. Kindness given freely from the last of what you have, that is the kind that reaches places money cannot. A half sandwich, wax paper folded twice, the choice to sit with a stranger and talk to them like a person when you didn't have to. That choice doesn't disappear. It lives in the memory of everyone it touches and has a way, in the fullness of time, of finding its way home. Give from what you have. It is always more than enough." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.